money being spent this summer. Is it possible that Stan Kroenke could understand that Kylian Mbappè could have a similar effect at Arsenal? That you could put him in up front and he could help us to win the league and possibly do what Paris Saint-Germain were not able to do. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Gooner channel. Today's breaking news is that Kylian Mbappè will not be triggering the extension on his contract and therefore will allow his contract to run out next season. He's entered into last year. Should PSG allow him to do that, of course, he will walk for free. He is one of their record signings. It's unlikely they're going to want to see a €180 million investment walk away for nothing. So it's looking increasingly likely that he's up for sale. The amounts I've seen talked about, and this is still all speculation, somewhere between 120 and 160 million. Basically, they're going to try and get as much for him as they possibly can. Now, we know that Lionel Messi recently signed for Inter Miami, and Neymar is being heavily courted by Saudi, who missed out on Lionel Messi. So the front three of Neymar, Messi and Mbappe, without question, the global superstar front three is now, well, they're breaking up the band, right? And I just want to quickly talk about how it's gotten to this point. And one of the reasons is because I think it's current. Man City are being accused of buying the treble. Paris Saint-Germain, well, they've done everything they can to do that. Now, the story as far as this chapter of Paris Saint-Germain is concerned starts in 2011 when they're bought by QSI, which is Qatar Sporting Investment. And President Nasser Al-Khelaifi pledges to make Paris Saint-Germain a team capable of winning the Champions League. To that end, they go and bring in World Cup winning Brazilian superstar, AC Milan Hall of Famer and Teenage Mutant Ninja. Sorry, I'm being stupid again. Leonardo. He'd spent just over a season at Paris Saint-Germain, didn't win anything, but was a huge favourite with fans and certainly somebody who knew his football. They brought him in as sporting director and they brought in Carlo Ancelotti as manager. Now, Carlo Ancelotti came in December and wasn't able to win the league in his first go, but in his first full season, thanks to the 30 goals scored by Zlatan, great defending by Thiago Silva, and bringing Beckham in for 5 months, he was able to win Ligue 1 for the first time for Paris Saint-Germain in 19 years. Now, the Champions League, they drew both games with Barcelona and were knocked out on away goals. So in the last 16, so it didn't happen for them in that. And he actually then decides to leave to go to Real Madrid, and we all know how that went, so can't really be called a bad decision. But the club decides to bring in Laurent Blanc, who really builds on the domestic success that Ancelotti has brought. He wins 2 leagues in a row, the second by a record 96 points, wins Paris Saint-Germain's first ever domestic treble. But again, the success in Europe is not there. So the club make the bold decision to part ways with Laurent Blanc, despite his huge domestic success, and bring in a man who had become, well, legendary, really. Unai Emery had won 3 Europa Leagues back-to-back with unfancied Sevilla, and certainly seemed the sort of tactical genius that could really elevate Paris Saint-Germain. Now, Paris Saint-Germain bring in Unai Emery in his first season, he doesn't win the league, which is a bit of a misstep, certainly in the form they're in. But more importantly, under Unai Emery, they lose a game so famous now, it's actually got its own name, which you can't say of a lot of games, La Remontada. And that basically is that they beat Barcelona 4-0 at home, and then went on and lost the away leg 6-1 to be knocked out. La Remontada, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, means the comeback. Now, that prompts a massive investment. So they really double down and say, we want this European Champions League and we're going to do everything we can to get it. They spent €222 million on Neymar that summer, 180 million on Kylian Mbappè, and they really go for it, but lose to Real Madrid in the last 16. And then, well, Emery can't survive that, so they bring in Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel does steer them to league success, and despite some embarrassments in the Cup, actually reaches the Champions League final for the first time in Paris Saint-Germain's history, but loses to Bayern in quite a boring match, 1-0. And actually, even worse, it was Kingsley Coman, who formerly played for Paris Saint-Germain, who scored the winner. Around about this time, Tuchel has started to fall out with the board, which is now not something that's unusual for Tuchel. I think we've seen it a couple of times. But they decide to bring in Pochettino. He steers them to another semi-final, but loses that, and they have their big summer. So following on from the summer in which they signed Neymar and Kylian Mbappè, now they go out and they get Donnarumma, Sergio Ramos, Wijnaldum, Danilo Pereira, Hakimi, and more importantly, the surprise signing of Lionel Messi, who is unable to stay at Barcelona despite really wanting to. Now, with this big outlay, they regain the league, but they lose to Real Madrid, and Poch leaves by mutual consent. He's fired. And then it's decided that, Khalifi says that a huge route to tip restructure is needed. He goes out and gets Luis Campos, who is a transfer expert, and Galtier. And, what happens is Paris Saint-Germain win the league again, but they have this really... They go out with a whimper to Bayern. They lost both legs and just never really looked in it. So this summer, as I've already said, Messi, who apparently has had a terrible 2 years at Paris Saint-Germain, and then Neymar, all the talk is of those two leaving. But Kylian Mbappè had been an on-off, and for him to come out today and say that he's definitely leaving is really apparently upset Paris Saint-Germain. Now, the big question, if a player who is undoubtedly world-class, like Kylian Mbappé, wants to leave, is where is he going to go? He's only 24 years old. He's won 5 Ligue 1s. He's been a Champions League finalist. He's won the World Cup. He's done an awful lot for a player of his age. And this is where Arsenal come in. We had a real chance of signing him when he was only 16 years, when he was still at Monaco, before he went to Paris Saint-Germain. Arsene Wenger went and talked to him and really tried to encourage him to come over. Kylian Mbappé has spoken about this since and said that it would have been a dream to play for a manager like Arsene Wenger. But the problem was Arsenal, for the first time in 2 decades, had not qualified for the Champions League, and that was a real clincher. So he wanted to go to Paris Saint-Germain more than he wanted to go to Arsenal. At the time, the transfer fee was around 96 million, and I really wanted us to do it. One of the huge disappointments that he didn't come, and I think we've all watched his career blossom since then. Wherever he goes next is going to have to front up somewhere in the region of 900,000 euros a week, which I think puts Arsenal out of contention. But I'm going to come back to this, because the big question I have is, why does it put us out of reach? And I'm going to try and explain this. Now, I don't know anything at all about basketball. The squeaking of the trainers on the floor puts me off. But, it is a great sport. And our owner, Stan Kroenke, has just won the NBA with the Denver Nuggets for, I think, shoot me down, but I think it's the first time they've won it. And this follows on for his success in winning the Stanley Cup, which is the hockey league. And, of course, I do know a lot more about American football, even though it's clearly not football, when he won the Super Bowl with the LA Rams. So he has now won with all his franchises, except Arsenal. And when he spoke about winning the NBA playoffs, he talked about Nikola Jokic. He said, when you have a player like that, you just got to back him all the way. Why is this relevant? Well, Jokic got a $150 million contract. $150 million contract. So Stan is clearly not averse to spending money. And let's face it, whatever your personal thoughts about the man, this is a person who's proven he knows how to run a sports franchise, whether it's hockey, basketball, American football, or, fingers crossed, Arsenal. So is it possible that we've heard that there is money being spent this summer? Is it possible that Stan Kroenke could understand that Kylian Mbappè could have a similar effect at Arsenal? That you could put him in up front and he could help us to win the league and possibly do what Paris Saint-Germain were not able to do, which is compete in the Champions League. I'm not convinced. The more important thing here, I don't think it's literally the money, because actually when you break it down, $1 million a week is still 50 million a year. So if you go out and you spend 150 million on Kylian Mbappé, you do a 4 million contract, it makes the total 350 million. He'll still only be 28. With football, with money coming into football like it is from America, Apple are coming into it. I think over the next few years you will see a massive influx, whether it's from an Amazon or a Google or one of the big players is going to try and capitalize on the increasing value within football. I don't know if it's a good idea for us. It's ridiculous to say this. Yes, if Kylian Mbappé would come in on 300, maybe even 400,000 a week, I think that it wouldn't have any impact on the dressing room. I don't know the man. I don't know his personality. I love watching him play football. I do think he could make a massive difference. But I guess if he's not coming to Arsenal, the big question has to be, where is he going? Now, Real Madrid they're looking for a striker. They have money. They're not scared of spending it. They're sick of losing out to the big players. They've just spent a load of money on Jude Bellingham. Wouldn't it just be typical if Real Madrid become the next Galacticos again by going out and getting Kylian Mbappé? Well, there is a slight problem with that. Kylian Mbappé has said that any rumours linking him to Real Madrid are lies. He's playing the whole I'm happy to stay at Paris Saint-Germain for the last year of my contract nonsense. And maybe that's just a smokescreen, and maybe it is going to be Real Madrid. Certainly, they're one of the only teams I can think of that could afford him and his wages and need a striker. Man City, I think, could afford him. And there's also the possibility that Man United, whoever ends up owning them, got to be better than the current owners, and probably will be happy to invest a huge amount of money. Beyond that, certainly not going to be Barcelona. It's not going to be one of the Italian teams. Newcastle came out and said they're not spending a lot of money this summer. Whether that's true or not, we wait to see. I don't think Aston Villa or any of the teams below them are in the running. Maybe this is what Brighton are going to be spending all their money on, because they've made a silly amount of money in the last couple of years. Maybe they're saving it all up to put Kylian Mbappé in instead of Welbeck. It'd certainly be an upgrade, and I do love Danny Welbeck. Maybe Kylian Mbappé will go to Saudi. I don't see it though, not at 24 years old, not with so much yet to prove. I can't see him going to the States, although that would certainly be a coup. If he's going anywhere in world football, it's got to be Europe, and I'm running out of ideas. Bayern Munich, although they desperately want a striker up front and haven't replaced Lewandowski, they already have an incredibly fractious dressing room. Can they really afford to bring in Kylian Mbappé into that environment? Well, maybe they can. And look, as a sort of part-time Bayern Munich fan, I kind of hope they do. However, they need more players than that. They need to fix some other areas. I think the key place they need to fix is up front. But I think if they're going to spend that kind of money on Kylian Mbappé, it doesn't leave any money elsewhere. And it's hard for me to see outgoing players that they can sell to make up that kind of amount. All things considered, if you're Kylian Mbappé right now, where's the best place for you to go? It's got to be Real Madrid or Man City. Maybe Liverpool. I don't think that's likely either, because we know Liverpool haven't got a lot of money. I'm really struggling, and it's, it hasn't been that long, so maybe I haven't given myself long enough. I'm really struggling to think, where does Kylian Mbappé go? So I need your help on this one. Why not leave your comments below? And do you think there's any chance that we would break all of our wage structures, break all of the records we've ever, It's interesting to me that if you add this up, if we were to sign Kylian Mbappé for 150 million, it doubles our previous transfer record. But it's also about 40%. If you added up our top 10 transfers ever, this would be about 40% of that spend. So I don't think it's going to happen. Would you like to see it happen? Can you make a good case for it happening? Please let me know in your comments. Beyond that, look, I just want to say I started this channel on the transfer window, or the eve of the transfer window in January. Happy with the signings of Jorginho and Trossard, and it's mad to think that now we're on the eve of the transfer window opening up again. It's been frustrating for me, as I'm sure it has for all of you, to watch so many people talking about transfers when it isn't even possible to announce them. We are all a little bit like children on Christmas Eve now, though. There is a huge amount of hope that Declan Rice will be announced first thing in the morning. I'm not sure it's in West Ham's best interest to announce it quickly. All the signs point to the fact this is a done deal, though, and Declan Rice is absolutely adamant where he wants to go. Beyond Declan, there are huge issues around Ilkay Gundogan, João Cancelo, Moses Caicedo, Xavi Simons, a whole host that I think are going to take us a little bit longer. But wouldn't it be great to wake up tomorrow and find out Kylian Mbappé is coming along with Declan Rice and Moses Caicedo? I think I'd be happy. Thank you so much for your support. It's been absolutely brilliant to this point. I am not necessarily going to do a video every single day during the transfer window, and here's why. I want to stick to the truth. I want to only report on things that are absolutely nailed on to happen. I'm going to try and do videos around other things than just the transfers, but this is the one thing that's occupying. And I'm sure you're no different from me, and you hit every different channel that you subscribe to try and get the first news of any players coming in. I'm unlikely to break any stories. I'm not an in the know, but I am very keen to hear from you. Some of your comments have been absolutely wonderful. I can only thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you haven't yet, click that subscribe, because 143 at the moment, and that's pretty good. But YouTube announced today that you can monetize from 500. So pretty close. Anyway, till I speak to you again, hit like. Do that right now, because a lot of you put comments on, don't actually click like. And if you click like, there's a magic algorithm, and it drives people to the channel who will love it just as much as you did. Anyway, that's enough shameless begging. So until I see you again, be lucky and lots of love.